Wednesday, January 29th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we tell you not only how to not suck, but how to beat all your friends at Settlers of Catan.
Let's do this.
If nothing else, the new Advance Wars is, hardcore.
It is quite the hardest of cores.
To the point that I think we're going to hold off on reviewing it another week or maybe two because, I'm real close to beating it. And I got a lot to say about it, and most of it is good.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to say about it because it's so different from the other Advance Wars that I think even if we had done like a show for each and every Advance Wars in the past,
God, I could do a show.
I don't think doing a show on this new one would be redundant.
I think I could do a whole show about every single map in the war room of every Advance Wars to date.
You want to do a whole show about every war room map?
I don't think we should. I think that would get real old real quick, but I think I could.
That's all you. I think it would just take about 5 minutes to talk about each map.
Are you kidding? Span Island alone, there are like 4 different ways to beat it, and there are 5 ways if you use a certain CO. The depth in those games is so great.
I think you're just a little crazy with the Advance Wars.
Well, maybe I am. I'm not going to pretend I'm not. At least I didn't fail out of graduate school because of Advance Wars like someone else we know.
No, in fact, you managed to play Advance Wars and pass.
Yeah. The fact that I S-ranked the hard campaign on Advance Wars 1 and 2 and still graduated still amazes me.
I don't know.
There was a point at which I would play. I would get to school. I'd play while I was walking to class. I'd play in class. I'd leave class. I'd go to lunch. I'd play. Batteries would die. I'd go buy more batteries, continue to play.
Yeah, GBA.
In fact, when I think about it, I really only played Advance Wars on my GBA.
Yeah. Well, when there's a blue and black DS Lite coming, I'm all about that. Finally, a somewhat decent color. I guess I can't afford to wait for a better color, so I'll take what I can get.
Your regular DS works fine. Why don't you just keep using it?
Because it's not as bright as DS Lite, and it's not as small.
Oh.
Yeah.
And how much does the DS Lite cost now compared to, say, 6 months ago?
The same.
Huh. So if you bought it 6 months ago, the cost is the same, but you would have had 6 more months of the bright screen.
With the wrong color. Plus,
so aesthetics matter.
Well, no, it would also the wear and tear on the system would have been 6 months worth. So now I'm getting a brand new one now, which is,
See, the thing is, my regular DS got beat the hell out of, partly because it was kind of big and bulky, and also because I carried around...
I remember when the DS, the plain old DS was new, and you turned it on, it was amazing, and now, not so much.
No, not so much. The thing is, I'll admit, my DS seemed fine until it broke. It was like, I can hold out. I'm not going to buy a DS Lite. I'll wait for the DS Lite.
I'm still pretty sure you broke it somewhat on purpose.
Are you kidding?
Even subconsciously on purpose.
I was playing Pokemon. I was in the middle of some Pokemons, and I dropped it. You know how angry I was at the fact that I could not continue to play Pokemons, and then I basically had a very large, somewhat suboptimal GBA for the next couple weeks before I bought a new DS.
But you don't care about your Pokemons now.
Oh, no, I could throw away my Pokemons and not even blink. I'm done with that game forever.
All right. Oh, well. So, we going to talk about newses or things of the day or any of that kind of shit?
Well, I guess I could start. I got a news. I'm sure the forum all knows what this is about, and I'm sure they know my opinion, but most of you, we'll see. We'll go with this. So, there were some announcements regarding Team Fortress 2 last week. A game
the game that we talk about way more on this podcast than it deserves. I mean,
the game we waited for 10 years. I mean,
I know. It just seems that we probably talked about Team Fortress 2 on this podcast in more than any other single game. But I don't think it really deserves that. And I think there are a lot of other games we never talked about that we probably could talk about at least a little bit.
Like what?
I don't know. A lot of the games you don't play.
Like what game? What game?
We can talk about Mario Galaxy.
We can talk about Mario Galaxy.
We haven't played it yet. So.
Yeah, because I've been playing Counter-Strike. A much better game.
Great. Okay. Anyway, talk about your Team Fortress.
Well, the thing is, Team Fortress 2, I've had a mixed love-hate relationship with it because on one hand, it's extremely well put together and well balanced, and it's overall a really, really solid game. But at the same time, it had a lot of, in my opinion, fundamental failings that really, really just bother me constantly when I play it. And as a result, I haven't played it nearly as much at all compared to pretty much any other FPS I've liked in my entire life.
Well, you've got an Advance Wars now, so just forget about it.
I can't. I just can't forget about it because I love FPSs. I've been playing FPSs for as long as FPSs have existed. I played Doom like every other day from the day it came out. But
so just play Counter-Strike then and forget
I
about
have
it.
been. But the thing is, I like these team
and natural
games.
selection.
Actually, I tried to play natural selection over the weekend. There was one server with people on it. The rest were all bots.
Uh-huh. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah. And that one server, it was running combat, and everyone really sucked.
No, well, we'll look into that. We'll see what the story is. They are working on NS2. They have a little video.
Yeah, you know what?
You know
what? Duke Nukem and Team Fortress 2 have both been being worked on in the past.
Team Fortress 2 came out.
Yeah, after 10 years.
Well, NS2 will come out in the next 5 years. I guarantee 5 years. Within the next 5 years.
Okay, so in
2.
4.97 years, I'm going to get to be really disappointed by a game that won't live up to my unrealistic expectations.
I have a feeling that NS2 is not a game that will disappoint.
I think you underestimate my my unrealistic expectations.
Okay, maybe. If your expectations are too unrealistic, then you can't be helped.
All right, anyway.
But I have faith in the people who make the NS2.
So I realized something, and I kind of thought this, but I wasn't sure, and now it's been proven to me because one, Team Fortress 2, they realized that people aren't playing the game that much anymore. There aren't even like an eighth the number of people playing it now that were playing it when it came out, at least on the PC. Servers have declined, and the game is not nearly as popular as I guess they expected it to be. So they've been saying, oh, we're going to change it. We're going to add stuff. Part of that was adding new maps, and the first of all these new maps came out. It wasn't actually a new map. It was just that well map, but they changed it to be a capture the flag.
Well, I think that's a good idea because they only had one capture the flag map, yet capture the flag is the most popular playstyle.
Yeah, I mean, think, back in like the Weapons Factory days, there were like 40 two-fort maps, and all of them were popular.
Yeah.
Team Fortress comes out.
Yep, and
there was one Fortress map.
Well was the second most popular map, right? After, I guess, Two Fort. So the problem with Two Fort, it was too small, so they just made a CTF well, and it sounds good to me.
Now, pretty much every idea I had about what was wrong with Team Fortress 2 was crystallized by CTF Well, because CTF Well made the game fun again. CTF Well is like the best thing that could have ever happened to Team Fortress 2.
Uh-huh.
Just by having open spaces and by having like 5 or 6 different paths, and even on a full-on like 16 versus 16 server, you cannot cover every way of coming in and going out.
Well, because on a normal well where it's capture the point, right, you're only ever really dealing with a small area of the map at any one time. But in a CTF well, you're dealing with the whole map at once, and it really spreads everything out.
Now, as a result, the gameplay, I noticed one thing. People who weren't good at the game hate CTF Well, because you can't do dick if you don't know how to play FPSs. But the FPS skill that was so lacking in pretty much every other map in Team Fortress 2 is back, and goddamn is that like the best map ever.
All right.
And it proved everything I thought was wrong with Team Fortress 2. I mean, I always complain like, yeah, everything's slow and everything's like huddled together and aiming doesn't matter. And while aiming doesn't matter nearly to the degree that it did with the old school, possibly infeasible in the modern era FPSs, at the same time, just by having the bigger map, aiming matters a hell of a lot more than it did in any other TF2 map.
Uh-huh.
So my interest in this game has been rekindled 1,000-fold, but I will only play on CTF Well.
All right.
But
I might have to play some CTF Well.
You might, Rabbit. Seriously, the game is fun again. I've been rocking it up. The spies can do shit. Snipers matter. But I
was waiting for the but. I knew it was coming.
See, I want to do the good news first because CTF Well is pretty much like Valve said, all right, Rim, we heard that you were pissed off. Here's some candy. And then as soon as I eat the candy, they say, but that's the last of the candy, and we're going to murder you tomorrow.
Poison candy.
Because it turns out that the other thing they're going to add to the game is every class is going to get like a new weapon or something. I'm going to get into all the details.
Right, that's exactly what you wanted, though.
Oh, it is. Yes, every class is going to get a new weapon, more because that's the only other thing that was wrong with the game was that every class needed one more main weapon, and it would have been like the perfect game. And they're adding one more weapon or one more ability to every class. But according to Valve, they're adding these weapons as Achievements.
I thought you were arguing for the achievements and then against me.
Now,
are you turning coat? Are you joining the Scott anti-achievement brigade?
I think, Scott, that you were using a tactic that I've used very, very often. But
are you saying my tactics are too clever, therefore I'm right?
But a tactic that at the same time...
Pointing out that my tactic is clever, in fact, proves me right, not wrong.
But clever it may be, fallacious it is.
No.
It is the fallacy, you see, of the false dichotomy.
I don't think it's a false dichotomy.
Because achievements in and of themselves don't hurt games at all, as far as I'm concerned. They're there, whatever. You can go after them, don't go after them. If you like them, that's great. But there is a problem in a game that is nominally a stateless, skill-based versus team game where achievements give you an advantage or change the options you have available to you within the game. Basically, Team Fortress 2 has become an MMO.
Dun dun dun.
Now, they haven't done this yet, and I was everything I said about Team Fortress 2 being like the best fucking game ever and coming back and like this new map and they realized what they've done wrong and they're fixing it. It's pretty much over if they actually go forward with this. If they decide that you have to arbitrarily level yourself up to get some achievement in order to get the better healing gun or the different homing rocket launcher or whatever else they're going to add, that reeks of bullshit to the level that I can't even begin to explain how, not angry, kind of disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, imagine in Counter-Strike, right? In Counter-Strike, you have one game of Counter-Strike. It begins when the map loads and it ends when the map changes, right? And the economics, sort of go from round to round. But a set of rounds on one map is a game. And that's it. You don't carry your money from game to game. That's, in Team Fortress 2, one game is until the map ends, until someone captures the flag 3 times or captures all the points. It's one game, all right? And what you do in a previous game should not affect the next game. I mean... That's how otherwise it's just unfair. What if you went to go, play Scrabble with your friend, right?
But he won the last 4 games
He
of
won
Scrabble.
the last 4 games of Scrabble that you were not involved in. So you go to play Scrabble, but he starts with 400 points because he won the last 4 games that you were not involved in.
Or he starts with all the E's.
Yeah, that does not make for a good game. And what they're going to do to Team Fortress 2 is if someone got achievements in previous games, now that means they're going to have more options, even if the options are no better or worse. They're going to have more options available to them in the next game. And that does not make for a good game. It is not good. It takes away skill. It encourages other things. It's bad.
Well, to clarify, that sort of thing is okay in a certain kind of game. If you don't want the game to be stateless, or you don't want the game to be purely a game of tactics, skill, or strategy, then that's fine. I think Battlefield 2 is the example people brought up in the forums, where, yeah, that game is not trying to be a stateless versus game. It's trying to be a somewhat stateful semi-simulation kind of game, and it's this totally different thing, and that's all cool. But Team Fortress 2...
It's not a game I want to play, though.
Well, no, I respect a game like that. It's just that the kind of game I like is a game that is pretty much entirely a game of skill, and a stateless game of skill at that. Each round is unique. That's why I play tennis. That's why I like games like that. I like to compete against people. German board games would totally suck if I could level up like in the Camarilla.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, in other news, the Cam sucks.
Okay, that's not news.
I just had to, because I'm curious if anyone who listens...
Rim, you better take care of that news. It's an antique.
You better watch that joke. It's an antique.
You better watch that joke. It's an antique. All right.
Crap, we're in a recursion loop. There's no way out.
Better watch that recursive loop.
So, I don't have a lot more to say about this other than that, you know what, Valve? Fuck you. I've waited for this game for 10 years, and it came out, and it was so close to being good. And then you're fixing the problems, and you've realized there are problems, and you're so close to perfection, and then you just take a big old poop on it.
Well, speaking of Valve and the Steam, right?
This better not be a steamy,
How about the plumbing to go with your Valve and your Steam?
All right, what's going on?
All right, so they have the Steam thing, right? It lets you download the games and buy the games.
We were talking about Steam at work today, and I'm curious why, in light of what happened to VMware today, I'm curious why Steam doesn't try to work with VMware to get video stuff to work to the point that they could sell or give away for free a Steam appliance that runs on any computer that can run VMware.
Because the problem there is there's nothing Steam could do to help them. They would need help from NVIDIA or ATI because they basically
and if I
they
were
need
Steam,
to write a piece of software that does everything that a video card does.
Oh, I'm well aware, and I'm saying that if I were Steam, I would be doing everything I could, I mean, within the bounds of reality, to convince or lean on ATI or NVIDIA or VMware, all of them combined, to try to get something like that, because that would be pretty much the best thing in the world Steam could ever do to make themselves entrenched forever.
It just seems like Valve really never has and never will care about having Steam running anything but Windows PCs, and it doesn't look like it's going to change, even though it's something I want more than almost anything.
It's something I'd be willing to pay a lot of money for.
Yeah, I'd pay a lot of money for that. But anyway, what they have done, right, is they are now giving away something called Steamworks, right? Steamworks is for people who make games, and it basically provides the, let me quote Gabe Newell, Mr. Steam. Developers and publishers are spending more and more time and money cobbling together all the tools and back-end systems needed to build and launch a successful title in today's market. Steamworks puts all those tools and systems together in one free package, liberating publishers and developers to concentrate on the game instead of the plumbing. Ha ha ha, plumbing Steam Valve. All right, let me list everything Steamworks does. You ready?
This is either going to be a great list or a really, really disappointing list.
It's a half great list and a half disappointing list.
All right, let's hear it.
So remember, this is a tool to help people who are making games, game publishers and game developers, right? First, it gives you real-time stats on sales, gameplay, and product activation. Know exactly how well your game is selling, etc., etc.
All right.
State-of-the-art encryption system. Stop paying to have your game pirated. They have it'll be as hard to pirate, your games as it is to pirate, Team Fortress 2 or whatever.
All right.
Territory/version control. Basically, you can release your game in, different parts of the world and not worry about people in other parts of the world getting it.
So far, these all reek of like evil businessman DRM kind of things and not things to help me make a game.
Yeah, it's the bad ones. All right, now here we go. Ready? Auto updating ensures all customers are playing the latest and greatest version.
Okay, duh.
Voice chat, so you don't have to program voice chat. You just use the Steam voice chat.
Man, I haven't tried it yet, but I think you can voice chat in the new Advanced Wars Wi-Fi.
Yep. Multiplayer matchmaking, so you don't have to make a matchmaking thing for your game. You just use the Counter-Strike Team Fortress matchmaking.
That's actually really good because that's like the best system out there currently.
Yep. Social networking with achievements, leaderboards, and avatars. Fuck the achievements, but leaderboards and avatars without having,
nothing wrong with the achievements there, as long as they don't give me the Uber AWP.
Yep. And development tools so you can administer betas and things.
All right.
So if you're making a game and you want your game to be on Steam, you can just get the Steamworks and you can add all these features to your game, especially, if it's the sort of game where, there's online matchmaking and servers and such without having to program all that shit.
Here's something I don't get.
Valve already programmed it.
So, your game publisher, you want to publish your game. Now, I can understand wanting to limit the markets in different places, like release it in the US and Japan, and then in Britain, Albion, then in Australia, or whatever, because, distribution and all that is difficult.
The main reason you want to do that, you'd think people would want to just release the game around the world to make the most money, right? The main reasons I think that I've got, I've gathered,
I think
that
the
people
main reason
don't want
is reimportation from the cheap versions in the US.
Well, no, I think the reason that they don't want to release games worldwide just immediately is because two reasons. Number one, right, is they want to kind of translate the games, and adapt them for different countries and stuff, especially if there's laws about certain things like, you can't have let's say you make like Wolfenstein. Well, it's kind of hard to sell that in Germany, with the Nazi whatnots and the laws there. So they want to avoid that kind of trouble. And secondly, they, I guess, similarly, you want to avoid, if you do business in a one more country, now suddenly you're beholden to that country. Like Microsoft is getting sued in the EU, even though they're a country in Washington, or company in Washington State.
Well, so the thing is though, with digital distribution, most of the barriers to a worldwide release are eliminated, and the only ones left are ones that come from you being afraid to stand up to some country that's afraid of something that they shouldn't be. or if you're trying to be evil and make extra money.
Yep. But I think that's why you still see different iTunes music stores for each country and
You know what I think we're going to see as a result?
Different, Wii Shop channels for different countries.
It just means that games released on Steam are going to, for whatever reason, not appear in Australia until 4 months later for twice as much money.
Yeah. No, but I just think that if anything, while it's kind of crummy with the Steam DRM and all that other bullshit, you're going to see a lot more games on Steam, which is just what Steam needs.
And you know what? I got to say, I see no problem with that because BioShock, right? I realize now that I don't need to go to stores at all anymore except for food and maybe very, very specialized items.
Any video game, any PC game I can't buy on Steam or download from a website for free, I could buy on Amazon.
Yep. And I really, really don't like going to stores anymore.
Going to stores is not pleasant.
And even then, I don't want a new, like, BioShock comes out. I don't want to have to, all right, go to Amazon, pre-order it, then a physical box comes. Because what happens when I buy a DS game, right? A box comes. I open the box and throw the box away. In it is a smaller plastic box. I open the box. There's a bunch of papers in it. I pull them out. I flip through one of them. Then I throw all of that away. And all I have left is the game.
Yep.
And computer games are even worse. They come with all this other stuff, but they don't come with anything useful. It's not like anyone ships manuals anymore.
Yeah, the only advantage of having the disc for a computer game is that if somehow your internet connection is dead and you need to install the game on a computer to play it because you don't have it installed already or it broke or something,
but half
you
those
can
games
reinstall.
require online registration to work anyway.
I know. So if you have a net connection and you have Steam, you can download the game from Steam. And the only worry there is that one day if Steam dies, you won't be able to get your games anymore, which is true, but I don't see that happening.
Steam's come a long way.
And Steam has offline mode, so if you know that Steam is going to go away forever, get some drives and download and install all of your Steam games, and then put Steam in offline mode and be done with it.
Plus, if that really happened, the one nice thing about Steam and the fact that gamers and nerds is that I imagine a lot of nerds would very quickly do everything they could to make Steam work again just so we could play our games.
With that, if it wasn't being constantly updated, the DRM on Steam would be broken and all your games would become unlocked. Or I imagine Valve is really nice and the guys there, even though they're doing this stuff for the business reasons. They're not assholes. They make the good games. They care about the gamers. You could tell there's the love in something like Portal, right? So they're not gonna fuck us over. You can trust them,
unless we're fans of skill-based team FPSs.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's what we want. Doesn't seem to be what most of the gamers want.
Except the thing is, playership of Team Fortress has been dropping. So.
Yeah, because people don't know. People don't know what they want.
I'll say this. People may not want what I want, because I'll admit that what I want is something from an older era. But at the same time, people don't want what's out there now.
No, people don't know what they want. That's the problem.
And if a game could be made that was halfway between what I want and what they want, it'd be a great game. The problem is, that's up from the center of this triangle, and Valve is going in the exact opposite direction right now. Full life consequences.
Consequences that will affect you for the rest of your life?
So, this was on Fark. I did not do any research into the veracity of the claims behind the origin of it. However, I'm going to believe that the story is true because the writing looks exactly like what a semi-literate 9-year-old would spew forth from their hand, or possibly onto a keyboard.
All right.
But, supposedly, some 9-year-old kid who likes Half-Life and Half-Life 2 wrote a fanfic about Half-Life and about John Freeman, Gordon Freeman's brother, who
that's pretty creative for a 9-year-old kid.
Live up to his family name and face full life consequences. Now, someone else, being a genius, took this and narrated it while also acting it out in the Half-Life 2 engine.
A little Machinima actions?
And let me tell you, this is a little hilarious.
I didn't think it was so funny.
I think you're a broken-hearted, cold-hearted, horrible person for not liking this.
I mean, I don't not like it. I just didn't find it that exciting. I think it was just kind of...
So what do you find exciting?
Oh, you want to know the secret?
All right, what do you got?
All right, so this thing today is all right. I'm not exactly sure what the history of this is, and that I think is why it is so appealing, and exactly why this video exists and what it's trying to do. But it's Ronald McDonald speaking Japanese to some song, and he's doing DDR Hottest Party on 3 side-by-side DDR mats.
Oh, man, 3 mats.
I wish I could play 3-mat DDR. That would be something.
I know we both could. I wish I could set it up so where we could actually do it.
You know what I'd like more than, you know what I'd like more than that?
A DDR machine?
No, 2x2 mats to make a 4-mat square with screens on all sides.
You know what's even better than that?
What?
A dance floor. And techno.
A DJ. But yeah, this is pretty interesting, and I realized number one way to cheat at DDR: clown shoes. Clown shoes are the win.
Especially with double mats.
I know, right? With double mats and clown shoes, you could hit 2 arrows at once with 1 foot with ease. Just with the clown shoes. So, if you wanna win at some 2-mat DDR, just get some clown shoes. It's real easy. You could stand up for. You could literally with clown shoes. You could just if you're doing single mat DDR, standard DDR, you could just put the clown shoes on and then just jump up and down really fast and pass the hardest song. So we've done a lot of shows, reviewing different board games or telling you about the rules or how they work and stuff. And there's a lot of other podcasts and things out there that do this. And we thought, hey, no one's really done this yet, at least not on a big scale, of, actually telling you strategy and how to win at games. And this is exactly what you do to play this game the best it can be played. And I guess for video games, it's sort of hard to do that because we don't have the visuals necessary for a video game, and we don't have the, Game Facts sort of covers a lot of the games that are just, sort of puzzle solution games. And maybe we could do like Street Fighter stuff, but you really need to see pictures for that too. So, but for board games, we can pretty much just talk about strategy and how to win, and you don't really need to see that much. Maybe if it's a game like Tigris and Euphrates or Go or chess, you need to see the patterns. But for other games, you don't really need to see any patterns or anything. We can just tell you how to win, and that's what we're going to try to do here.
Yeah, now plus, part of the reason we're doing this is that at some point in the near future, Scott and I are going to buy a camera, and we want to start making just videos that show you how to be really good at board games like T&E in Puerto Rico. And got to figure out how well this works, and Settlers is such a simple game to basically beat that what other game could we do first? Maybe, I guess Carcassonne, which is easily...
I think Carcassonne you kind of need to see, though.
Yeah, but in terms of simplicity of explaining how to win, there's not so much to say.
I think Guess Who would be easier to explain.
Ask if he's wearing glasses.
Yeah, okay. maybe Yahtzee.
Actually, Battleship, we could just tell you what the search algorithm will work best.
Yeah, but anyway. So we're gonna tell you how to win at Settlers. I'm gonna see if that's interesting, and we're gonna assume you already know how to play Settlers of Catan. If you don't already know how to play Settlers of Catan, then why you listen to this show? You got to learn how to play before you learn how to win.
Well, at the same time, just log on to your Xbox and start playing some Settlers.
Yeah,
you should.
Yep.
Settlers is a fantastic game until you solve it, and even then, it's still not horribly unfun.
No. All right, so first rule of Settlers of Catan, right, is when you're starting the game, the first thing you have to do is sort of put your initial settlements out there, right? Now, when you're putting the initial settlements, where you go, either you're going to be the guy who puts out the first settlement ever and then the last one, or the rules, right? Basically, on each of the numbers on the board, because each resource spot has a number on it, there are some dots. More dots means that space is more likely to be rolled.
The dots are basically just if you don't know enough statistics to know the odds on 2d6.
Exactly. So 6 and 8 have 5 dots, and they're red because those are going to be the most frequently rolled statistically. After that comes 9 and 5, and then 4 and 3. So you want to put your settlement touching as many dots as possible. So if there's a spot where you can put it where it's next to a 6 and a 4 and a 10, that's a pretty damn good spot. I mean, the 10 has 3 dots, right? The 4 has 4 dots.
Well, I think the thing is, in terms of positioning in the early part of the game, now it doesn't matter when you go, other than that if you go last, you have a special option of being able to know exactly where both of your settlements will go.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, you care about the dots more than anything. And if you're going to win at Settlers, on average and in general, when in doubt, go for more dots. More dots, you can never go wrong with more dots, except in extremely specific and obvious situations.
Yep.
However, if the difference between a good loadout of resources and a crappy loadout of resources is 1 or at most maybe 2 dots different, you might want to edge toward picking the resource spot based on resource they give you as opposed to number.
Yeah, I wouldn't sacrifice more than 2 dots, but let's say I can choose to go here where there's 12 dots, or I can go there for 10 dots, but I'll have brick. Then that might be worth it, especially depending on how late you're putting your settlement out. If you can see where other people's settlements already are, maybe not a lot of people are on brick, so it'll be much more valuable to go on a brick that's, a little bit more likely. Or maybe you'll be a little closer to a very useful port, or maybe your first settlement is really trapped by other people's settlements. You're not going to be able to build any roads. So really, you're not going to be able to win if you don't put your second settlement somewhere that you can build a lot of roads from, even though you'll get less dots. But I wouldn't sacrifice more than 1 or 2 dots, and it shouldn't be necessary to if you're playing properly.
Yeah, I mean, there are crazy situations. Like, let's say you go last, and there's a spot that gets a ton of sheep and nothing else, and a sheep port.
Yep, I mean,
neither one is taken.
Exactly. In the worst case scenario would be basically every other player puts their settlements in a way to fuck you horribly, right?
Which sometimes happens.
Which could happen, but in that case, they'd pretty much have to detriment themselves, leaving a really great space wide open for you, and you just take that. And so
now, before we get into, the exact specifics of placing, I think the main discussion here is what are the strategies of Settlers, because we can talk about the mechanics of, like, there are certain things that are universal to all strategies, like how to deal with trading, when to go after stiffy cards, when to go after whatever. But the fundamental thing about Settlers that advanced players will think about and novice players don't so much is what direction are you going to go? And there are effectively only 3 viable strategies in Settlers of Catan, and there are minor variations on these strategies. And looking at the board and looking at where you can place, you have to decide which of these you want and not let up and not change for the rest of the game. If you try to change strategies midstream, you're done. Now, the strategies basically boil down to people call them different names, but there's brick and wood, grain and sheep, and tripod.
Well, tripod is sort of sort of goes along with either one of the two.
Well, the thing is, they're kind of like tripod. Tripod is special in that where you place and what you do is not dependent upon what resources you want.
You sort of need some brick and woods to do it, but yeah.
No, but very little, because you can trade. Tripod is basically the strategy of go for dots and nothing else, get whatever resources you can, no matter what they are, because more resources is always better.
Yeah, and with Tripod, you're going to be building more settlements and fewer roads, so you're going to want to try to get a more of a spread on the resources. You're going to need, because a settlement requires a brick, one of each, one of 4, right?
Yeah, it doesn't need stone.
Yeah, it doesn't need stone, but it needs one of everything else.
And then the brick and wood strategy is basically you want to start getting a lot of brick and wood, and you don't really care about much else, and you use the brick and wood to expand out all over the board as fast as you can and cut other players off from key areas that you're then going to build in.
Yep, that also gets you the longest road, which is something that's very important in the game, is that, you're playing in this game, and the way to get points is to build settlements, build cities, longest road, and biggest army. If you're not going for either longest road or biggest army, you're not going to win. You need one of the two to win. I've never seen someone win without one of those two.
I have, but not when every player is experienced.
Right.
We'll think of it this way. We're going to give these strategies to you from the perspective of you are playing against suboptimal players. If you follow our advice, you're probably going to win every time.
Yeah, pretty much. If you follow what we say and you do it correctly, then you will beat people who do not do this pretty much statistically most of the time. If everyone playing is following these strategies, then the game is going to come down to chance, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, the example is I entered a sanctioned official Settlers of Catan tournament. Round 1, where everyone's in, I won by like 7 points, and everyone just sucked like horribly. And the next round, I still won by a lot, but there were other players who were good. The third round, it was literally every player was pretty much exactly equal in skill, and it was totally random who won. And the fourth round, it was perfectly random. It was literally, without any exaggeration, the player across from me won with 10 points. The player to their around, the next player would have, no matter what, gotten their 10th point on that round. I would have gotten my 10th point on that round, and the other player would have gotten the 10th point on that round.
Yeah, I guess the odds were really nice and evened out. But you could have been paired with one of those people that you played the final game with in the first round.
Yep.
I guess you just didn't.
Yeah.
Luckily. But yeah. So
but in that case, because the thing is, the way it was soft elimination where the bottom 2 players were eliminated from the first round.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
that's not bad.
So it wasn't that bad. It was a pretty good way to do it, but that was when I realized that Settlers is random among skilled players.
Mm-hmm. All right, so...
But then the other strategy is the stone and sheep strategies, alternately known the city stiffy strategy.
Yep, you can either if you try to get lots of bricks and woods, then you're going to build lots of roads and a lot more settlements. If you try to get more rocks and grains and sheep, you're going to be able to upgrade to your cities, getting more rocks and grains and sheep, getting a lot of stiffy cards. Oh, but stiffy cards are development cards, but you're not cool unless you call them stiffy cards. Right?
That's what they're called in German.
Well, I guess. But I think it's because the original German, the development
they were
cards,
really thick.
They were printed on very heavy card stock, so people called them stiffy cards.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
So if you get lots of stiffy cards, you can then use those, to get the largest army and also to win the game.
Yeah, so basically the brick and wood lets you expand a lot, but you're not going to get a lot of cities, and you just have to expand, block other players, build as many settlements as you can. And you'll get longest road. The sheep and stiffy strategy is you're going to get the largest army, and you're going to have all these cards, which are going to help you with the fact that you don't have a lot of brick and wood. Like, hopefully you'll get road building or something, but even if you don't, you'll be able to trade and get a port or something. Mm-hmm. And tripod is the generic, this strategy will always work.
Yeah, tripod means that you build a settlement, right?
You ignore resources.
Yeah, you're not allowed to build another settlement within one space. So what you do is you build 2 roads, and then you build another settlement, and then...
Well, no, you build 1 road, and then from that 1 road, you branch out in both directions with a road.
That's what I was about to say, yeah.
And then you build a settlement on each of those.
So basically you have 3 settlements. Each settlement has 1 road pointing inwards, and those 3 roads meet each other. So that you can get the most settlements in the least amount of space. Normally you'd have to build a settlement, 2 roads, a settlement, 2 roads, a settlement. Here you can build 3 settlements with 3 roads all pointing at each other.
Now the drawback, obviously, is 1, you're not going to get longest road, and 2, you're going to be building settlements in suboptimal places.
Yeah, but because you have so many settlements and you're not really competing to fight for a lot of territory on the board, you're saving a lot of territory and you're saving a lot of resources, not having to build extra roads. All those extra settlements are a lot of extra points, and you're going to get, even though you won't get a quantity of resources, you're going to do above average because you're going to be having, all these settlements all over the place, and just keep doing it. And, it puts you in a really strong position in the game. You build a lot of stuff, and then you just kind of win.
Now, these 3 strategies, you might say, hey, I thought you said this game was kind of random, but look, there's 3 strategies, and they do all have pros and cons. I mean, tripod's kind of like I'm going to march slowly toward the end and no one can stop me. And brick and wood is a really strong early game, but stiffy sheep has a really strong late game. But the problem is you really don't have any choice in which strategy you use. And the reason I say that is that you don't choose your strategy going into the game and then try to put your pieces where you can enact that strategy. Based on when you go in the order of placing settlements, you have to look right now what your options are, what the board looks like, and from there decide opportunistically which of those 3 strategies is the best tactically for you based on the current situation.
Right. So if I'm putting my initial settlements down and there's a spot with a whole bunch of dots that's open, like maybe, freaking more than 14 dots, like a whole lot of dots, not 14 dots, but a whole lot of dots. It's got a 6 and a 5 and a 9. It's huge. It's a great spot, right? And it's got rock grain under it. Guess what my strategy is going to be? Lots of cities and lots of stiffy cards.
Yep. And beyond that, I mean, you really just have to look at the only other real concern in terms of strategy and placement is simply, is there going to be a resource or a commodity that's going to be ultra rare? But again, because of the way placement goes, you don't have a lot of choice because, sure, if you get to play first, then you got to play your second settlement last. You're going to have one good spot and almost no control over your second spot. So you got to play a more conservative game, but you'll offset that by having one really good settlement. And you also have to look at, in terms of dots, this is very much a secondary concern, but you do want to keep an eye on where other players have placed. I mean, if you're thinking, well, I'm going to go here and I'm going to be brick and wood, so right away I'm going to blitz a road out and get that sheep port over there. that's a really crappy idea if anyone else is also going to go after that sheep port and is also doing brick and wood. You can't rely on it.
Yeah, you basically want to sort of avoid competition. There's enough resources in the game for you to get ahead without having to fight anyone else for the things you need. And if you think, oh, well, I can expend resources to maybe fuck someone else, well, maybe you can, but if you do that, and it's the only way to do that really is if you're going for longest road, and you can build roads to sort of block people off. But other than that, trying to screw people, use the robber. There's no other way to do it, really, that is not going to hurt you in the long run. If you try to screw people a different way, like taking something they need that you don't particularly need, then you're just going to hurt yourself and someone else is going to win besides the two of you.
Especially in the opening placement. Never think, oh, I'll go here because that denies him the blah. Because one, if it's a good spot, someone else will go there anyway. You don't have to worry about it. And number two, only go the place that is best for you. Don't worry about hurting some other player because everyone's going to place optimally or they're dumb.
Yep. Now, I mentioned the robber. Let's talk about the robber.
All right. Now, people have cute little rules about the robber, like house rules. Like, oh, well, it's traditional for everyone to bribe whoever gets the robber. Or you don't put the robber on the first round. Or you put the robber somewhere where it won't hurt anyone and everyone plays nice. If you want to win at this game, one, there is no robber leeway. That's a house rule.
Yep.
Robber's in play right away.
If you roll a 7, if the 7 is the first roll of the entire game, robber goes. That's it. That's how the game works.
Now, if you're playing with the house rule, fine. You have to follow the house rule if everyone else agrees. And beyond that, it doesn't matter because if you roll the robber, you can accept bribes. You can do whatever you want. However, do not ever not fuck someone with the robber. Put the robber in the place that hurts the most, the player who needs hurting the most every time.
Yep.
Don't have pity. Don't think, oh, well, I should be fair. Just if you keep rolling 7s, keep putting them on the lead player's like forest, and now you have the only wood in the game.
Yep. Put it where you can do the most damage. If someone is in second place right behind you and the other people have way less points than you do, like if I have the longest road and Rim has the largest army and I get the robber, I gotta fuck Rim. So I look on the board, where can I fuck Rim the hardest? Oh, look, he's got a wood factory and I've got a wood factory, and that's the only wood in the game. And he's got 2 settlements in that wood factory. Oh, I'm going to rob and I'm going to take a resource from Rim, you know? Also, pay attention to what resources people have. You don't need to remember exactly. It's not really that useful. But remember sort of what people have. Like, if you just rolled a 6, you know, last turn, that means that so-and-so has a lot of rock. If you need rock, maybe you should rob them to get rock.
Yeah, the odds are pretty good. Or you can always play the bribe, because inexperienced players will often do the bribe. Now, first of all, for experienced players, never ever bribe anyone. You'll never gain. It's not worth it.
No, I mean,
it's totally a waste of your resource.
Think about how stupid. If they rob you, they take 1 resource. If you bribe them, you give them at least 1 resource. It's basically you're saying, don't rob me. I'll rob myself to prevent you from robbing me.
Now, instead, if someone other player is foolish and decides to bribe you, take the bribe and then screw someone else, because now you've screwed 2 people.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. Do as much damage with the robber as you can. Always.
Okay, and here's another strategy, because with the stiffy cards, right? The stiffy cards you can get are soldiers, vast majority of them, right? If you get a soldier, if you're going for largest army, you're gonna be using lots of soldiers. Every time you use one, move the robber somewhere and use them just like we said, to fuck someone the hardest, right?
Now remember, there is a rule a lot of people forget. You can, on your turn, before you roll the dice, if you have a soldier card, play it to move the robber. So if the robber is on you, don't play the soldier before you roll the dice to move him off your stuff.
Then roll the dice, and if you roll a 7, you get to rob twice in the same turn. That's pretty good.
Also, and in terms of the soldier cards, if you are going for largest army, or you think you might go for largest army, pretty much as soon as you get a soldier, play it immediately. Because remember, you can only play 1 card per turn. Already having a soldier out before other players do gives you a huge advantage, because when it comes to longest road and largest army, ties go to the defender. You want to be the first one out there, the first one with stuff.
Yep, so if I have 3 soldiers and then Rim plays his 3rd soldier, I keep the largest army until he plays a 4th one.
But
so, yeah.
If you're not going for largest army, if you've decided you are not going to pursue that at all, don't play the soldier until you need to.
Yeah, play the soldier pretty much on your turn before you roll when the robber is on you. Otherwise, that will basically... It's always good to hold on to one soldier anyway, even if you're going for largest army, because then you can always, if you get robbed, you can move the robber off right away.
But
and
only,
he won't stay or hang
only
around.
hold on to it if you already have N plus 1 soldiers out there, N being the number of soldiers any other player has.
Exactly. All right.
In terms of the other stiffy cards, I think it's pretty obvious when to use them.
It is. However, there's a trick with Monopoly. Now, the Monopoly trick only works against moron players who haven't played the game and have no experience. So it's not going to work against us. But the Monopoly card, the way it works is you say Monopoly on rock or Monopoly on wood, and everyone in the game has to give you all of their rock or all of their wood, right? So that's really good. If you need a specific resource and you don't have it and you know other people have a lot of it, then you can do that, right? Now, the thing is, you have to make sure you don't use it on something no one else has. Like, don't say Monopoly on rock when there's only one rock out there. Wait, and then a whole bunch of people rolled up a whole bunch of rock and they haven't used it yet. Then Monopoly on rock, right? Another thing.
Well, the special strategy.
I'm almost there.
Well, just get there.
I want to say it because it's so awesome.
Okay.
Because it fools noobs every time.
Yes,
right?
it does.
It does. It fools noobs every time. The real trick with Monopoly is this. Let's say I've got a lot of rock, and I know that other people in the game need rock, right? Now, if they're dumbass players, right, who are noobs, they're going to trade me their stuff for my rock. I'm the only one with rock, or I have a lot of rock and no one else does, right? So I trade away my rock and get all the stuff I really need, the wood and the sheep and the grain, right? Then I say Monopoly on rock, and they have to give me all the rock back.
And the coup de grace, if you do this, I think it's pretty much a law of the universe. You must immediately, after you've taken all the rock, say, well, anybody need rock?
Yep.
Now
you don't have to do it with rock. You could do, if you have wood and everyone in the game needs wood badly, you can trade away all your wood, then Monopoly all the wood.
Red Wizard needs wood badly.
Yeah, then Monopoly all the wood back after you trade it all away.
Now, in terms of trading, because this is very important, when you see most people, the fun of Settlers is, trading and negotiating and whatever, but you'll find, and especially like in tournament player among experienced players, people don't trade a lot. And the rule for trading, there are 2 rules of trading, and if you're going to win at Settlers, follow these rules 100%.
Yes, if you trade... See, the thing is, part of the fun of Settlers is all the trading action and the bargaining, right? But the thing is, in reality, bargaining is not a good idea so much if you're a Settlers
If you
player.
want a bargaining game, play Dune.
Oh, no, if you want a
Diplomacy.
bargaining game, play Traders of Genoa, which is a game of bargaining, where you can't win without bargaining.
But
And
unless one of the following 2 conditions is true, do not ever trade with anyone under any circumstances ever. It will never, ever, ever be a good idea.
trading is almost always a bad idea in Settlers. If you trade, you will lose, except in these conditions.
Now, condition number 1 is if you rip someone off.
Exactly. If I'm trading someone like a wood for 3 sheep, yeah, that's going to be a good trade for me and a bad trade for them. Hooray. Do that. But if someone's ripping you off, or if they're making an even trade, don't do it.
Now, ripping off pretty much means either getting more resource cards than you gave the other person.
Yep.
Oh, and even then, that's not always a good ripoff. Or if you know, or you're pretty sure, but you should know if you're keeping track of everything, that the card you were giving to the other player will not help them nearly as much as the card they're giving you.
Yes.
In which case, they made the mistake of trading with you. They shouldn't have.
Yeah, unless you are super confident that you are getting a way better deal than the other person, don't trade at all.
Now, the only other circumstance where an even trade would be acceptable is if you're trading with, you're basically going to be a kingmaker, but the reverse kind of kingmaker.
Yep.
Trading with the last place player.
Exactly. If you're in first place, right, and you make an even trade with the last place player, or even a slightly disadvantageous trade with the last place player, you're helping out the guy in last place. He's not going to come up and beat you, even if you help him out. And so as long as it helps you a little bit, that's a good trade. As long, of course, if it's a trade you could have made with a port, or, with the 4-1, don't do that with a player. Use a port or something. No point in helping anyone else.
Yep, unless a player's not going to win. If there is one person in your group who is not going to win this game, trade with them as much as you can, but don't trade with anyone else.
Right, and that way, even though you help someone out, they're not going to win, and you got helped out a bunch, and now you're going to win.
And when in doubt, always use a port instead of trading with the player if you think if you can't find a way to rip someone off.
I mean, if I have a port that lets me turn 2 sheep into anything I want, right? And someone else is going to say, hey, I'll trade you anything you want for 2 sheep. I could either give 2 sheep to another player to get a brick or give 2 sheep to the bank to get a brick. Guess what? 2 sheep to the bank to get a brick is the same for me, and it doesn't help someone else by giving them 2 sheep. So it's obviously a better move.
Now, if every player is smart enough to follow these rules, then basically there's going to be no trading going on in the game.
Pretty much.
Or everyone's going to be trading with the last place player.
Yes, I mean, if you have 3 awesome players and 1 crappy player, then what generally happens is that everyone sort of fights to see who can take advantage of the crappy player the most. And it's sort of a sad thing. And this is why the game loses a lot of its fun when everyone's really good at it, because there's not so much trading going on.
Now, that's largely all you need to know to be a badass at Settlers. I mean, beyond that, get resources, buy what you can. In general, you want to buy things and expand as quickly as possible. If you can build a settlement, you probably want to build it. If you're racing someone else to get to the good spot, get there before them. And get there before them. Like, do whatever you can to ensure that you get there before them.
Yeah, I mean, always make sure that you have at least one spot that's, has a road where you can build a new settlement. You probably want to, if you have enough to build a settlement, but you don't have a road that will let you build one, build that road quickly. You don't want to hang around, with all this settlement. I guess if you have enough for a settlement, you have enough for a road, because you need the brick and the wood. But, always make sure that at any moment, what if they happen to roll up enough stuff for you to build a settlement? You don't want to have to spend a turn building a road and then the settlement next turn. You want to go settlement right away. Make sure you have always a settlement that's not a city yet, in case you get enough stuff to turn something into a city. You can't, if you have all cities, well, you can't build another city. You need to build a settlement first. So, do stuff in the order to never leave yourself in a situation where you have the resources to buy something, but you can't actually buy it because you're not set up to do it.
Yep. Now, once you've determined what strategy you're using and you're following all this other advice, in terms of enacting them, if you're doing the stiffy sheep or, the rock, whatever, the end game strategy, you pretty much, you want to, if you can, build a settlement. Whenever you can build a settlement with that strategy, do it. No matter what, build the settlement. But other than that, you pretty much want to get cities and stiffy cards in fairly, get them whenever you can, whenever it's advantageous.
Before other players, you want to start buying stiffy cards.
You want to buy the first stiffy card in the game, and you want to have the first city in the game, which is very likely going to be a possibility.
It's a good deal.
And then from there, you're not going to win. Because remember, there's hard and soft points. Hard points are victory point cards, settlements, and cities, because those points cannot ever be taken away from you. And then there are soft points, longest road, largest army.
Because you can get largest army, but then someone could take it away from you, so it's a soft point.
Now, you can win with the stiffy sheep strategy without getting largest army. However, the way to do that is to buy more stiffy cards and basically buy stiffy cards as much as you can, and if you get victory point cards instead of soldiers, don't worry so much about largest army and just hold on to those victory point cards.
Victory point cards are great because you don't have to play them. You just hold them in your hand, and then basically, let's say I have 6 points on the board, right? And I'm holding some stiffy cards. Smart players will realize I probably have some victory points in there, but they don't know how much, because some of them are 1, some of them are 2. I could be holding a soldier to bluff, which is a good idea sometimes, And so it looks like I have 6, and other people probably have 8 or something at this point. So they think I'm behind. They might even make a trade with me or something, if they're really dumb. And then I just go, oh, look, I actually had 3 points hiding up here, so I built 1 settlement, and then I win.
Because remember, the rule is you can only play 1 card per turn, and you can't play the card that you bought that turn, unless they're victory point cards that win you the game.
Yep, then you can just play all of them at once. So just hold on to victory point cards, don't play them, and then at the end of the game, as soon as you get 10 points, including those cards, just flip them over. And there's no point in revealing information you don't have to reveal.
Now, in general, don't scrimp and save and dump things into ports in order to make a little road and put a settlement somewhere if you're using this strategy, because the stiffy cards will carry you, and you want the stiffy cards to carry you. You'll have the largest army.
Yeah, you get if you need something, occasionally you'll get the stiffy card that lets you build a few roads, or you'll get the one that lets you year of plenty.
Or you can just keep using the robber and get stuff, and then you get so many resources with your cities.
Yeah, just keep robbing the people that have the bricks in the woods.
Because you don't need a lot of other stuff to win. Now, with the brick and road strategy, the brick and wood, just expand as fast as you can. Do not build cities. Don't even go for cities. Don't buy stiffy cards. Just, you have to build roads out and then put settlements on them as fast as you can.
Yeah, just pretty much build road, and every time you're able to build a settlement, build one, and then build roads every other chance. So if you're sitting there with a brick and wood, build a road.
Now, if you're doing the brick and road strategy and you're not going to tripod with it, this is one of the few times where it's kind of advantageous to fuck another player. Let's say I can build road settlement, or I can build road settlement, and that's, if I put the settlement in the third place, it's equivalent in terms of what it gives me, but it blocks another player. You probably want to do that because the brick and road strategy involves being in everyone's way and preventing them from expanding.
Yep. I mean, if you think about it, you cannot build a settlement within one space of another settlement. So since you're going to be going around with a lot of roads and other people are going to be moving kind of slowly, you can really put your settlements in places that prevent people from being able to build settlements. You know, you put your settlement one away, from the spot that some other guy wants. Now he can't build anything there. You got him. Or build it right in the spot that he wants. Now he can't build it there. And you can get it there faster than he can. So ha 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 ha.
Now, beyond that, don't buy stiffy cards, really. They're not going to help you that much unless you really, really, really have a good reason to. You just got like
a bounty of resources from incredible luck.
Yeah, but you're probably going to win, and you're really only going to need probably one city, and then everything else can just be settlements.
Yep. Now, the thing is, if you're following all these things we're doing, and you're doing it correctly, you're not screwing up, and you're not winning, that's because it's a game of luck primarily. Most of the game, if everyone plays the way we just said, it pretty much comes down to the roll of the dice. I mean, while 6s and 8s are more likely to be rolled, it's not necessary. I mean, if someone has their settlement on a 5 and 10 and no one else does, and 5s and 10s just happen to be rolled a bunch, that person's probably going to win, and it's not through any fault of, strategy or tactics. It's just the dice.
Yep.
That's how the game goes. It's a mostly random game when you get down to the bottom of it. So don't be upset if you lose, even though you were playing the best you could, because that's just how it goes. Nothing you could do about it. It's not your fault. Only be upset if you lose because it's your fault. Got any other settler strategies?
I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, unless anyone has a specific question, you can ask us in the forums, and we'll go into laborious, excruciating detail about exactly what to do in that situation. But other than that...
that's how Settlers of Catan goes. I don't see... It's not that complicated. There's not much else you can do to do better at it than we just said.
There's no other strategy. I mean, there's the poison is in the other cup strategies of going, like, say no one puts their things around 4. So you have settlement on 4 and in the early game. So, all right, if statistically 4s aren't rolled very often, you're not going to win. You're not going to have any resources. But if by a fluke of the dice 4s get rolled more often than statistically is expected, you're probably going to win because every time that's rolled, you're the only person getting resources. But every time a 6 is rolled, 2 people get resources or 3 people get resources. But that's not a strategy. That's just going for the lower chance of happening, but the higher chance of winning if it does happen.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's like gambling. You can bet on, the horse that's probably going to win the Kentucky Derby, and if the odds are 50% of the time or something, you'll win, but you'll win very little. Or you can bet on that, long shot horse. Ben, you might not win, but if the long shot horse gets ahead, you win big. And that's sort of what he's talking about.
Yep. But I mean, beyond the strategy, it's a game of tactics, and be as opportunistic as you can at every point you can. And because the game's simple enough, there is usually an exactly perfect or arbitrarily equivalent move to make at any given point.
And then the thing you just have to remember is that don't play nice. You got to be a bastard and fuck everyone as hard as you can and try to win as hard as you can. And that's true for pretty much every game. And that's why I think some people don't like playing with us, because we play to win. And when someone's playing for fun against someone who plays to win, it's not going to be very fun.
Yep. Like that. There was the game of Endecker I played with our friend Luke way back in the day. And it was a good game. I eventually won that particular instance, but the way I won was basically by I did a tricky maneuver, and I did all-out attacked Luke, who was currently winning, to the point, because I realized, and this is a general strategy for all board games, if you're in second place and you do something that attacks the front runner, taking points away from the front runner is perfectly equivalent to giving yourself points.
Yep.
So if you can do something that gives you a lot of points, or do something that gives you a few points but takes a lot of points away from the front runner, you're better off doing the latter.
So let's say I have two different moves I can choose from. In move number A, I get 10 points. In move number B, I get 5 points, but the person in first place loses 6 points. B is effectively 11 points, which is better than A, which is just 10 points.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.